Damian Lewis, you play Nicholas Brody on Homeland. How much about your character did you know when you took on the role?
Well, I knew what I'd read in the pilot, obviously, and it was clear that he was being set up as a potential terrorist threat because of Carrie Matheson's reaction to his recovery from this Al-Qaeda cell, being played by Claire and Danes. And then after that, I spoke to the writers, and they made it clear that there will be is he or isn't he sort of plot that would develop through the season. I just made one thing clear, or at least made a request, that I wouldn't be happy accepting the role if there were going to be any easy or lazy associations drawn up between violence and Islam, which I thought would be irresponsible. I think we've managed that, so I'm happy with that.
On a show like this, where from week to week to week the plot propels forward and lots of new revelations, what is it like as an actor as you get that next script and you're finding out as much as we are along the way?
Well, it's part of the reason I enjoy doing this kind of long form drama. I enjoy the novelistic aspect of it.
You were beaten. Yes, tortured. That's right. To what end?
I need to know certain elements, sort of the fundamentals, so that I can plot my character and be credible and not be sort of sculpting him one way, only to have something, the rug taken out from under my seat completely the next week. And Alex Ganser and Howard Gordon are both incredibly collaborative that way. They're not secretive or precious about sharing information. But at the same time, I like you as the viewer, I love picking up a new episode each week, like you pick up your novel and read the next chapter before you go to sleep at night. It's part of what's fun about it, that novelistic quality. And you read it and you go, holy crap, okay, wow, this just gets better and better. And that's an exciting and important part of doing a show like this. For me.
Absolutely. You've done long form before. You were on NBC's Life for a couple of seasons, and unfortunately that was disadvantaged because of the writer's strike, and then it was mishandled probably by whoever, by the network, and unfortunately wasn't a success. And how different is it for you working on a cable series as opposed to a network series?
There's been a lot of talk recently about well, certainly when I was at NBC doing Life, that the subject matter now and the tone of network shows, some of them were steering more towards a cable sensibility. I think Life actually perhaps was one of those shows. It was starting to had a quirkiness, a comedic quality, and a darkness that was perhaps more associated with cable shows. I don't live in LA. I live in London, and bringing my family out to work for 10 months of the year, 9 to 10 months of the year on a TV show to LA was always going to be problematic. And I, to be honest with you, hadn't really worked out how we were going to handle that if the show had been a big hit and then gone for, 5, 6, 7 years. And doing cable TV from a personal point of view, a family point of view, where you shoot for 5 months of the year is better suited to my lifestyle. I don't take for granted the quality of writing that I've been lucky enough to interpret in Life and Homeland. It's it's rare to be offered jobs when the quality of writing is that good, and needless to say, you're not the only person that wants to do that job when writing that good comes along. So I'm I'm extremely lucky to have been involved in Life and also Homeland.
Mm-hmm. On this type of show where there are revelations all throughout the season, it's a very gripping show. What do you hear from fans when you're out or maybe by mail or email or whatever? What have you heard the last few weeks?
I try to stay away from that sort of self-harming of getting online and finding out what everyone thinks about you, because you sure as eggs are eggs, you're going to come across someone who just goes, "What is that tosser doing?"
Yeah,
but it's clear that people are loving the show. It's clear that they are feeling manipulated in the right kind of way, within the parameters of the thriller genre. They're enjoying the conspiracy theories and trying to work out who's who and whether Brody is in fact a terrorist or not. And they're enjoying having their expectations subverted, particularly, I think, by this watershed episode called The Weekend, where Carrie and Brody become romantically involved in the cabin by the lake. And it seems as though Brody as a terrorist threat has exploded suddenly in this episode. And there's been a recent twist again in the episode we saw this week, where it's clear that he might be possible of violence. He might be possible of some kind he might have the potential, he might be capable, of some kind of terrorist act, but the motivations for that act have shifted somewhat to something that resembles more a personal, emotional act of vigilantism in some way. So, again, the question still remains, is Brody going to blow a bunch of people up? And who will those people be? And what are his real motivations for doing that? So I think the suspense is still very much there. But what I'm gathering from people is that they're enjoying the twists. They don't feel manipulated in the wrong kind of way by those twists. And they're I see 4.5 stars just everywhere I look, And that's thrilling. It's thrilling to be part of that. I can't tell you how lucky I feel to be part of it. So long may it continue, because TV audiences, the one thing I have learned is they're nothing if not fickle. And they might love you for 8 episodes, but if you don't deliver in the final quarter of the season, they feel betrayed very quickly.
Definitely.
So we have to see it through. We have to see it through.
That's a really good example, Damien. Like that happened with The Killing earlier this year, and but The Homeland, for instance, you got Metacritic scores of in the 90s, and I've seen critics say not only is it the best new show on TV, it's probably the best show currently on TV. That's better than a kick in the face. But I wanted to ask you something specific. You've already brought up The Weekend. That's probably been the highlight episode so far. And the pivotal scene probably of the whole series to date has been you and Claire on the porch or veranda where some revelations are made. But it's such a dynamic scene. It's really, really beautifully rendered. And I just was wondering if you could just give us some, insights about how that scene was filmed and how it came about.
It doesn't matter.
I'll decide that.
You don't need to know.
I need to know everything.
I think one of the appealing things about this show for people who share our sensibilities is that each episode feels a little bit like a film. Rather than a TV show. And that's because they've really busted their balls. The writers have busted their balls to explore character, explore the psychology of the situation, whilst remaining true to the genre, the thriller genre, which is you need to keep people on the edge of their seat. You need to keep it twisting and turning. And this is so well represented, I think, in this particular episode by Michael Cuesta, who directed it, because he really just allows the camera to sit.
Yeah.
It's really, after all, and lest we forget, it's a show about four people sitting in two confined spaces. Mandy and the character Eileen, who he chases down to Mexico, and they go on a road trip. And one half of the episode is these two people sitting in a car, the other half is us two sitting in a cabin. And it just shows how thrilling, how suspenseful film can be without car chases and, people falling off cliffs, if it's well written and character driven. And from our story point of view, from the Carrie Brody story point of view, always the difficult thing to finesse was, why do two people who clearly represent the most dangerous person in each of their lives, why are they drawn towards each other, and why do they seem to pursue that when it seems to be a reckless thing to do? And I think for Carrie, who lives in a world of secrecy and isolation, and a world without emotional intimacy, he represents something thrilling and exciting for her. She's like a moth to a flame. She can't resist. And she really crosses a professional line, there's no question. For Brody, he's more recently damaged. He suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. He's unable to reconnect intimately with his wife, as we've seen. And I think she represents a broken winged bird, like he feels himself to be. So there's a recognition in both of the characters. Also, with her emotional mood, her mood disorders, her perhaps bipolar disorder, and his post-traumatic stress disorder, both people suffering from both those conditions are thrill seekers, and they self-medicate through recklessness often. And I think that's how we were able to justify them coming together. Also for Carrie, there's always this undercurrent of, keep him close. I'm still investigating this guy. I'm falling for this guy. I may even be falling in love with this guy. But also, keep him close, because I'm investigating him. And for Brody, I think he knows that she represents the most danger to him. She's already said one or two things which piques his interest, like, holy crap, does she know something already? And I think for him there's an element of keeping his enemy close as well. And then they unexpectedly fall for one another. So there was a lot of discussion about how can you be both at once suspicious of each other and also start to fall in love with one another. And I think it's that sort of potent, heady mix that has made that episode so successful. But we were really helped by Michael Cuesta, the director, just standing back and letting moments play. And for me, it really plays like a an independent film. It has that sensibility to it, which is why I think it's partly so successful.
Well, Damian, we're an awards website, so I want to bring up the fact that, Golden Globes are coming up soon. I think the Hollywood Foreign Press is just going to eat this show up. It's just their cup of tea, I imagine. But the Screen Actors Guild also, what would it mean for you and the cast, say, to get recognized by your guild members in that ensemble category?
There's there are different kinds of recognition, aren't there? It's, just not being able to walk into a grocery store without, being attacked. And then there's critical reception, and then there's just peer group, sort of approbation. And, I think for everybody who works, when other people in your trade, in your craft, recognize what you've done is good work, then that's particularly special. So if SAG recognized us, that would be an icing on a cake. let's hope there are lots of cakes, but it would certainly be icing on a cake. No, if not the whole cake, but but it would be lovely. Of course, it would be great. And I know we're not supposed to care about awards, and I suppose in the end the answer is that it's not the thing you care about the most, because you must just be confident in understanding your own work, knowing what it is you created, and with the group of people that you created it with, just be your own harshest critics and know that you've created something good, and know when you've fallen short, and you don't need other people to tell you that. But when other people also get it and you're proud of what you do, then of course it's great if they want to recognize that by showering you in awards.
Can't say no to that. Please,
I don't care.
more.
But if they were showering me in awards, it'd be fantastic.
It'd be great.
Of course.
You have most of your scenes with Claire and Diego and Marina Baccarin. We're talking to Marina tomorrow, and so I'm curious because I'll probably be asking her, what's it like working with Damian Lewis? Curious to know what it's been like working with her. You've got some pretty tough scenes with her.
She's so beautiful that I think they tried to make her less beautiful to start off with, so that everyone could believe she was married to me, I think. But and I think she's come at the role with a fierce commitment to make that not the central point of Jessica, which of course it shouldn't be. There's a scene, you'll know what I'm about to talk about, where Brody is unable to connect intimately with her. She wants to hold him. She wants to make love to him. And Brody pushes her away and totally objectifies her. And, there's no polite way of saying it, masturbates on her. And it's to do with having been hardened and isolated from any sort of physical affection over the 8 years he's been in his cell. And Morena plays it with such heartbreaking poignancy. She's so degraded by that moment, so ashamed and so embarrassed, and she's naked, and she's just left there while Brody takes care of himself. And it's an awful humiliating scene, and I think just testament to her that the fact that she's naked and there is all her gorgeousness to look at is simply not what's important about the scene. It's the shame of the scene. It's a very powerful scene, and it's sadly all too real. This inability of families, lovers, husbands and wives to connect after men have been brutalized by war, and women too and their families have been brutalized by war. They become emotionally disconnected. They have affairs. They look for some emotional comfort, physical comfort back home, and to my mind, totally justifiably. And then, especially if you think your husband's dead. And then he reemerges like a sort of ghost from the ashes. That must be confusing in many, many different ways. So, anyway, so she's been fantastic. She's been fantastic to work with.
Well, Damian, we are looking forward to the end of this first season, and wishing you and the rest of the cast and the show and everybody all the luck during this award season coming up.
Thank you. I'm glad you're liking it, and I hope everyone's liking it. We'll keep spreading the word.